Hello, friends. Ken Graves here with God's Sword. It is Tuesday, June 24th, the year 2025. That's right. Just think for a second. You want to see an ugly cut? Listen, if you don't want to see an ugly cut, turn away. But it just looks so ugly. Look at this thing. I took such a big chunk of my thumb off yesterday, and it really hurt. But I wanted to, inevitably I'll be waving my hand as I tend to, and you'll see it and go, what is that? Just an ugly cut. Took a chunk with my knife, with a knife, a very sharp knife, factory edge. Quick slip, cutting weed whacker twine. Stupid, actually, but those are usually the kind of injuries I end up with. So we're in Matthew chapter 9, our second installment. This is Matthew chapter 9b. And we pick up with verse 14 of chapter 9. Then the disciples of John came to him, asking, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" The disciples of John the Baptist. John the Baptist lived the lifestyle of a man in a permanent penitence sort of mode of life. His diet, his lifestyle out in the wilderness, all of that. Lived in sackcloth, truly. And he and his disciples, his followers, those who joined themselves to him as their teacher, they practiced fasting. It was an exercise. In fact, they fast. In the other statement is the Pharisees, they fast, but yours don't. It's a legitimate question. They're wondering about the spiritual disciplines of Messiah and of those who follow him. Why do you not do this? Fasting is a very effective exercise. It's good for us to humble ourselves, to weaken ourselves, and to deny ourselves something for the sake of spiritual pursuits. The Lord taught that. We covered it in Matthew chapter 6. When you fast. But our Lord and his disciples were not. Now they were giving up much. No home. As the Lord said to that one who said he would follow him, he said, "Birds of the air have nests, and foxes have dens, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." So they're on the road, they're on the move, they're sleeping often, no doubt, on the ground. Many nights when the Lord himself does not sleep. He stays up all night praying, seeking his Father. But when it comes to food, our Lord and his disciples, were not practicing fasting. Now, it's interesting that the disciples of John have noticed. It's interesting that they have seen. I believe it is probably directly connected to what happened in the verses just before that. They were at a feast. They were at the table. And publicans and sinners, tax collectors and sinners, they came and they ate with the Lord. And the religious leaders were outraged that he would do something as intimate as eat with wicked people. And the Lord answered that in our last study. The disciples of John only wonder, but why don't you fast? They see him eating often and eating with others, and eating as a form of fellowship. There were, of course, those who would claim that the Lord was a glutton and a drunkard. He was neither. He was no glutton. He did not binge. He didn't overeat, or he wasn't all about the pleasure, but it was the pleasure of intimate friendship, the pleasure of intimate fellowship with people, yes, even publicans and sinners. So, they began to wonder, when do you guys fast? Oh, you don't fast. And so they wondered why. The Lord's answer in verse 15, Jesus said to them, can the attendants of the bridegroom mourn as long as the bridegroom is with him? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast. So it's a matter of timing and what is and is not appropriate, right? If it's wedding time. By the way, John the Baptist identified himself as the bridegroom. The bridegroom's friend, rejoicing that the bridegroom had come. When his critics said, don't you know there's more people going to him now? Religious leaders trying to drive a wedge. And John said, he must increase, I must decrease. But he identified himself as the friend of the bridegroom. And the Lord here uses the same analogy from John and says, would it be appropriate? Can the attendants, can the participants of a wedding feast fast while the bridegroom is with them? No. It's just a matter of timing. It's really what is and is not appropriate at this particular time. The time will come. It will be appropriate to fast. He will be taken away. Now that is a prophetic statement. The Lord knows he came here on a mission to die. He will, in fact, die for the sins of the world, and he will be taken away from them. That will be the time, the days for fasting. But then he adds to it in verse 16, but no one puts a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch pulls away from the garment and a worse tear results. Nor do people put new wine into old wineskins, otherwise the wineskins burst and the wine pours out and the wineskins are ruined. But they put new wine into fresh wineskins, and both are preserved. So what is the Lord's point? And how does that connect to fasting? Well, again, it's all about what is fitting. Is it fitting to fast at a wedding feast? No, it's not. It would not be fitting. And when you're going to put a patch on a garment, you want to put a patch of pre-shrunk old fabric on the garment, or the new and the old, it wouldn't work. They would not go together. The tear will be made worse. Likewise, it's fitting. You're going to put new wine in new wine skins, not old ones. And so it's all about what is fitting. And the Lord, the Son of God, he answers John's disciples about fasting with what is and is not fitting. What goes together? Does fasting go together with a wedding feast? No, fasting doesn't go with a feast. You got to put what is fitting with, what's happening. That's simple. While he was saying these things to them, behold, a synagogue official came and was bowing before him and said, my daughter has just died, but come and lay your hands on her and she will live. You got to be truly impressed with a man's faith. His daughter, no doubt when he set out on this mission to find the Lord, to come and pray, his daughter was still alive, but now news has reached him that she's dead. His request is still, come, lay your hand on her, she'll live. His faith is impressive that the Lord has that kind of power, that all he's got to do is come there and lay his hands on his daughter and that she would live. This is no doubt Jairus, his 12-year-old daughter. We'll see him come up again in the other Gospels, but his faith is not as great as the chapter earlier with the centurion. The Gentile said, you don't even have to come. You don't even have to come and lay hands on my slave. You just have the authority to say it. You just say the word, because you are a man under authority like I am. Therefore, you have authority. Just say the word and my slave will be healed. That was truly amazing, and the Lord marveled. Jairus has faith, faith enough to come, faith enough and desperation enough to come, but not the kind of faith that says, look, if you just say the word, my daughter will live. No, you've got to come. Come, you must come. Please come and lay your hands on her. Well, Jesus got up and began to follow him, and so did his disciples. The older woman, who had been suffering from a hemorrhage for 12 years, came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment. Fringe. That's interesting. That is his outer garment. It for the Jew, it had fringe or a little tassel. It was trademark. It was something culturally that the Jews were using to identify themselves, no matter where they were, as part of the covenant people. Not something that God required, but it was cultural, and the Lord honored that. He wore one, no doubt, one that was made for him, a garment that was woven one piece. One of those garments which the soldiers would cast lots for because they didn't want to tear it. But it marked him. I understand the tassel was a blue color, but it was a tassel on the outer garment, a little tassel, a piece of fringe. And this poor lady, hemorrhage. This is, gynecological issue that it's cost her so much. She had suffered so much. She is considered unclean, as any woman in her menstrual cycle has to leave the camp and go outside the camp, go through this whole purification process. This poor woman is in that state, therefore cut off, outside, exiled from everything. The poor woman has suffered so much. But she said this in her heart. She was saying in verse 21 to herself, if I only touch his garment. It's not that that's all she wanted, but she saw that if I could just at least that much. And she knows in her weakened condition, she knows enough to know that entering this crowd, she is ceremonially unclean and it is forbidden. She knows that she's weak and will probably be knocked down in the process, but that's okay. If she could just reach that tassel at the bottom of his outer garment, she is convinced she would be healed. Her faith is in him. If I only touch his garment, I will be saved from this. But Jesus, turning and seeing her, said, daughter, take courage. This is a young man, 30 or so years old, and a grown woman, but he calls her daughter. Does that not tell you? It's not just like daughter of God. He's calling her daughter as if he were, in a sense, her father. That's because he's a lot older than you think. Physically, he's 30, but he is the Ancient of Days. He's always been. Daughter, take courage, your faith has saved you. Daughter, don't be afraid. At once the woman was saved from her hemorrhage. When Jesus came into the official's house, and he saw the flute players and the crowd in noisy disorder, he was saying, leave, you're all dismissed, leave, for the girl has not died, but is sleeping. He's a joker, I tell you. He's not angry. He comes in, no doubt with a smile. This has all been a big mistake. She's only sleeping, which to him, it is not a lie. To him, death, physical death is just sleep. And he will wake her. Leave, for the girl has not died, but is asleep. And they began laughing at him. Laughing. They go from mourning and lamentation to laughing to mockery. But when the crowd had been sent out, coming in, he took her by the hand, and the girl got up. And this news spread throughout all the land. Man. More detail about that. The other Gospels, including the detail that he asked her parents, will you give her something to eat? And could you not tell everybody about this just yet. He just interrupted a funeral, all this lamentation, all this drama. And he goes, hey, everybody, excuse me, everyone, you can leave. You're dismissed. It's all been a big mistake. She is not dead. To him, she is not dead. To everyone else, well, she was quite dead. To everyone else, funeral time. But not to him. To him, it was just another opportunity to demonstrate the love and the power of God. He woke her up and presented her to her parents. Now imagine those professional mourners. Imagine those family members who came at the rapidly traveling news that Jairus' daughter was dead. It didn't take long to get there. They all came. Imagine them. Let's assume it was a day later, maybe 2 days later, small town. And they see her. And she is, in fact, alive, the girl that they had the funeral for, and the girl that they marked our Lord over, because she's alive. And they're all going, well, what how is this possible? What? She really was only sleeping? And later, it got around. It got around that she was actually dead, and the Lord woke her up. I love that story. I love that King of ours. Oh, that we could love him more. All right, friends, thank you for taking the time. We'll pick up where we left off in tomorrow's study, Lord willing, with the third installment of chapter 9. Grace and peace to you all.